Momma Tee, T Alves. Nice to have you in this platform.
No, thank you for. I'm honored to be here. I am. I seen your shows, and I like them. It's raw. I know, so I know what I'm getting myself into. I just don't know what.
Good.
But thank you so much, Dillies. I appreciate it.
Thank you first of all for having the courage to even come sit down.
Courage?
Oh, of course, because a lot of people are afraid to be themselves, you know.
I see.
So that's one thing about you that's always stood out to me is that you've always been yourself, even from the amount of time we've gotten to connect. That's made the biggest impact for me. Is like, whoa, she's herself, authentic. Yeah. Love is coming from her spirituality.
I appreciate that.
So I felt compelled to bring you to this light so that other people can see the light that you bring as well. So let's open it up to your background. Where were you born?
Oh, okay.
Who are you?
Who I am. Mm-hmm. I was born to a male that was really not in my life. He was there, but he wasn't. And he was a churchified man, just real quick, deacon, mason, all that good stuff. My mother also, she was an Eastern Star. We are originally, and I can only give you most of my mother's side, because me and my father didn't really clash like that. But on my mother's side, I was born in Barnstable, Mass, Cape Cod. We are Wampanoag Indians, considered Cape Verdeans, Black Portuguese. We also got, as my grandmother would say, some of this and some of that. You know, we come in our tribe, we are the blackest of the black and the whitest of the white, but we're all brothers, sisters, and related somehow. My mother, she grew up in Cape Cod. As a matter of fact, they lived right next to the Kennedy compound. And she had 12 siblings. And my grandmother worked at the Kennedy compound as a cook. So we have this old cookbook. And my mother grew up with the Kennedy kids, so they were real familiar with each other. Let's see, my mother left home when she was about 16. She also, I have 9 siblings, and so she had a lot of kids too.
How was growing up with 9 siblings? How was growing up in general?
I'm gonna tell you this. I can't speak for everybody, just my perspective. Each child has their own story of how they grew up or whatever. Just like I felt, I had problems with my dad. But, then you talk to another sibling, he was the greatest guy in the world. So you have to, everybody has their own perspective. But growing up with a lot of siblings was fun. I remember being in 5th grade and it would rain on a Friday and all the kids would get sad and stuff. But I loved it because I knew that when I get home, everybody's all tucked in the house with playing games. And you know how it goes, just being around your family like that. And I always enjoyed that. There was always a laugh in a room. You go from one room and you're laughing about something, and you're going in another. I wouldn't have traded it for nothing in the world. Nothing.
Are you guys still close to
this
day?
Nice,
oh yeah. Nice.
I'm real quick on that. We wasn't initially, but the brother that was closest to me, he passed away at an early age, about 25 years old, and we didn't know what was going on with him. And we made a pact that after that, he had passed, that we would always know what each other are doing. We were always checking up on each other and all that good stuff. I know that till this day, since he's passed, and that was in, probably 1989, 90 or something like that, we have what we call Sister Power, where one hosts at their house once a year. And we, in the beginning, it was just an event about your childhood and stuff like that, but now it's more of just a gathering and laughs and good food and good drink and just loving on each other. Yeah.
Do you feel like that large family dynamic kind of bred you well for the military?
Yeah.
Okay.
My father was Air Force, okay. And that's how we ended up traveling around. We was originally, when he first came, this is before I was born, we was in the projects in Boston, Mission Hills it was called. And they kind of like sort of had a little affair because he was stationed there. And then here I popped up. And so he got a divorce and I got about 6 or 7 siblings ahead of me. And he came and he got our family and took us to Alaska, and we started traveling military lives. And we ended up in New Jersey, so, right outside of Fort Dix. So we ended up there where we grew up in Pemberton High School is where I graduated. But anyway, military's in our blood, and just about all the siblings went in. Me, my perspective, when I graduated high school, all my friends were going to college and took the SATs, and I was one of them that, I don't know what I'm going to do. So what happened was my sister Bonnie just happened to be in Boston, and she knew the coach of the basketball team at Boston University. And, I played ball in school, so she took me up there to get a tour, and I thought that's where I was going to end up too, but I guess not being prepared, leaving home, I got homesick, went back home, and I think for about a month, my mother let me go do what I wanted to do, and then she finally said, after, Ma, can I get $5? Ma, can I get $5? She's like, enough's enough. So she took me to a plaza, Air Force, Army, and she said, pick one. So I picked the Air Force, and we went in there, and my mom said, how long will it be before she leaves? And he said, oh, it's a waiting list. We literally walked out of there into the Army, you know what I mean? And right away they took me, so I ended up in the Army, and I did 30 years. But I stopped at 12, did the reserves, was a police officer in Fulton County for about 8-9 years. And then I went back in after they called me up for the Iraq War, and I just finished it, and I just ended up with 30 years.
Wow. Wow, thank you for your service. Mm-hmm. Wow. So many questions. I mean, how was your service with the police force?
I started that off when I got out of the Army in 12 years, because I think I had a calling. Mm-hmm. I was studying while I was in the military, criminal law. And I remember when I was taking classes on the base, one of the classes was investigations. And the teacher had actual Polaroid pictures of cases that actually happened on base. And there was this one picture that stood out to me. And I remember one of the Polaroids was a dad, and you could see the sheer panties or something he had on. And there was a little Spanish girl about 8 years old, and she had on this lingerie standing there, and you could see she was crying. And I think that was the first time I actually laid eyes on something like that. And I was just thinking, and I think the teacher caught my expression, and he asked me how I felt about it. And I said, this little girl was probably the happiest little girl to go to school, more so than coming home, because she knew what was going to happen when she came home, But that, looking at those pictures changed something in me. And ever since then, I kept, asking the Lord, what do I need to do to help the kids, the future? And I kept praying on it. And something said, get out, go be a police officer. And that was the closest I could get to the kids, which was a good thing. I mentored a lot of the project kids when I went to Lubbock, which I forgot to say, my first place of duty as a police officer was Lubbock, Texas. Mm-hmm. And that was back in, I want to say 95, something like that. And I did 3 years there, but it was the worst place because it was very prejudiced. I was the only female. They never had a black female before. So I get up on the scene and I come to work, just fresh out the Army with the, you're still shining your boots and everything else. And here I am with this little New Jersey accent, little black girl. They didn't know how to take me, So they basically, one thing about police officers, they gossip among themselves because that's all they got in common. You know what I mean? It's who they know, and so they gossip a lot. That's why you probably see them up in them donut shops and stuff, gossiping. Just about each other, too. Ain't about nobody else but each other. But anyway, so I had a pretty bad experience with them. And it took me a lot of thinking and stuff. And what really took the cake was your sister Luan was with me. And she must have been maybe 8 or 9. And I was sitting at this house that I just bought. and I was looking up the window. We lived on a corner of a street, and she got off the bus, and this little Caucasian kid, I could see him in her ear while she's walking, and she's just walking. And I said, "What is he saying to you?" She's saying, "Nigger this and nigger that," and it said, "You know what? I gotta tolerate this at work, but then when it comes to your kid, you know what I mean? Enough's enough, you know." And plus, that little kid belonged to us next door, and things were happening like we had a dog. Don't know what happened to the dog. They would mess with the mailbox, you know, just different things always going on.
Just antagonizing the.
Oh, it was pretty bad. And then you got the police department. You know, even though you work there, they're antagonizing you. You know, they don't realize that I did 12 years in the military, you know, and looking so young. I bought, as soon as I get there, I'm buying a house, and, you know, it's already furnished. And so I had a little niece, just another story. She came in, and we was teaching her how to dial 911 on her little play phone. And back then you had cordless phones, you know, with the antenna. And so she got a hold of one of them, and she dialed 911 and just left it there. Next thing you know, the police was at the door, and the older little cousin, she answered it, and they came in, you know, and I'm coming out my bedroom, you know. But anyway, they come in, I don't need you, everything's fine, you know, go. So when I get to work, on the chalkboard is 911, you know, whatever, you know, but they're talking about me. So, but they can't confess who wrote the stuff up there. You know, I used to be known as the bitch, the nigger bitch, and all this other stuff. You know, it wasn't pretty. But to say that when it comes to your child has to endure prejudice, you know, that's not good. So when I saw that, I packed up everything. I sold the house. I gave whatever I owed the bank, you know. And I moved to Atlanta, where I continued on being a police officer with Fulton County there. Yeah.
So between the police service and serving your country in Iraq as well, how did you stay grounded with yourself so that you were spiritually, religiously sound?
My spiritual journey goes as far back as 4th grade. My dad, like I said, was the deacon in the church, and you know we woke up with loud Sunday chorus records blasting on Sunday mornings. You know, my dad made up pancakes and things like that. But you know, so I grew up with religion in my family. It got to the point though. I was curious. I wanted to know why all these people in church know all these stories and stuff. I want to know the stories. I want to read them for myself. So then you as a child, you get this Bible that says thee and thou. I'm having questions like, am I the thee or am I the thou? Nobody's teaching you this stuff. They're just telling you these stories. I want to read it for myself, but I couldn't read the Bible. And so somebody had one in the English, just plain language. And then I said, oh, I get it, But that's when my first real curiosity with religion started.
How did you interpret the Bible when you read it?
As a young one?
Yeah, as a young one.
It was just stories of what they tell you about Noah's Ark, the little kiddie stories and stuff like that, you know. But with me in the Bible, when I got older, something told me to read the Bible, and I actually read the Bible from front to back in a year and one day. And it's very interesting because it's a novel. It goes from one family generation into the next. And then you really understand why is there two, an Old Testament and a New Testament,
Why? Why is that?
From what I gather, it is because the Old Testament was the old way, And just like, do you feel the change that's coming right now?
Of course.
It's a change. They had to make changes with the times that came.
Mm-hmm.
So from reading the Bible at that time, I said, that must be because when Jesus came, he turned everything else. Remember before it was, what would they say? If somebody hit you or something like that, you turn around and hit them back, eye for eye. Well, then Jesus came and said, you turn the other cheek. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He's coming to kind of correct things in a more loving way. and saying that some of that stuff is no good no more. They don't do it that way no more. That's how I took out of it.
Once you've completed the book, were you more rooted in religion afterwards, or did that kind of spark your interest to go beyond?
No, it more than sparked my interest to want to know more. Like, who wrote this book? You know what I mean? How far does it go back? And I'm going to just say this. In the beginning of time, we had the land, they had the Bible. And when they left, we had the Bible and they had the land. And that's not just talking about the Wampanoag Indians, but, you know, the people of the First Light, the people that supposedly helped the Pilgrims, but the Africans too. If you think about it, that European culture came down and taught us that, where we was already spiritual people in the beginning. You understand? So it made me curious. So what I did was I researched it. When I was reading that Bible, I got it like a Jehovah's Bible. I want to know the difference. And I did. I found some differences. Like, for instance, the Baptist or Christian Saint, James one is, he died on the cross. But whereas the Jehovah book says he died on the stake. You get what I'm saying? Little small things like that. And it was very interesting. But if you really read all these different Qurans or Bibles and stuff, or, research it's true. It's only one God, or only one great spirit, or only one spirit. But everybody just has their different ways of getting to it. And it's what you believe. Right. Even if you don't believe. I talked to atheist children, and I asked, because I was curious, do you think that once we're passed away, it just goes blank? And it's not about what they think afterwards. What they feel is to be the best person they can be while they're here. They don't bother with or try to think about the after. Just be the best you can be now, right? And that made more sense to me than the way people say, they're going to go to hell and all this other craziness,
Do you identify with a certain spiritual base of any sort?
I study Buddhism as a philosophy, and the reason why I do is because it corresponds in line with my spiritualness, and I think it's from my Indian heritage. So I'm going to show you.